Podcast, and this is going to be quite a bit of a complex one today. I think we're all going to need something quite refreshing. We're all going to need a large pint of something very refreshingly cold today, because this is going to be a very complex episode. We are going to be talking about expansion again, because we've got more details about expansion now, but it's not the details we're all hoping for. Okay? We still, at the time of recording this on May the 4th, we are still unsure about where we're going, which four markets are going to get in. But we do now have a bit of an idea of how the roster building process is going to work. We are not having a traditional expansion draft like we saw last year, hosted by Tessa and Julia. We're not having that. We've got a 5-phase process, and when this dropped last night, so on May the 3rd, I had 2 reads of it. The first read was when it first came out, and I was like, oh my god. Then the second read I did just before the Wild's disastrous Game 1 in Denver. Oh yeah, I went there. And I thought, oh actually, I think I get it now. So we're going to do it bit by bit. So there'll be transitions between each one to allow you guys obviously to pause, get you restock drinks, and all that. Now I'm going to need brews as well. And all that. So we're going to do that, and we're going to do it bit by bit. So we're going to do each of the 5 phases. We're going to explain it all, and then we'll come back at the end and do an outro and all that. There's going to be 2 extra episodes on this. One is going to be our general thoughts. So me, Put a Lady, will give you our general thoughts. That'll be on another episode. And then we're going to do another episode where we talk about how we feel about there not being expansion draft this time around. Okay, so it's going to be, that's what's going to be in the next few episodes. So it's very complicated, but we're going to do it together. I've just got it on my phone, all ready to go. So let's all now take our quick pause. Pause? What was that? Oh my god. Sorry, I'm actually still exhausted, by the way, guys. And it was quite a lengthy read last night, so yeah. And plus, obviously, I had Wild at Denver, so yeah. So I think I'm something worth aware there. Anyway, yeah. So yeah. Let's take a quick pause. There we go. That's better. Let's take a quick pause, and then we'll get started. And I'm going to go through each phase one by one. So we'll start with phase 1 first. So let's go take a quick pause, and then we'll get stuck straight into it. Okay, so I'm now going to take you through it bit by bit, and we're going to start with phase 1. Now, interestingly, in this article on the Hockey News, they've got dates put in, but of course these dates could potentially change depending on how things go. We're very much in a flux state here, guys. We do not know, of course, right now, we do not know who's in, and we don't know how the process is going to work for sure. We don't have dates for the draft yet, the entry draft. So it's all here. Of course, we don't know the draft is out either. So it's all a bit of a hearsay. Yeah, and I'm not talking about the band from the early 2000s. Okay, so yeah. So this is going to be a bit of a hearsay thing. Yeah. So the dates, I'm not going to give the dates. I will not give the dates because those dates are not concrete. I'm not going to give the dates. I'm just going to go through the phases and so forth. Okay, so that's what it is. So I'm not going to get the dates, but if you guys go and check out the article on the Hockey News, they will have dates there. I would take those at a pinch of salt. Don't look at those being, yeah, that's concrete, okay, because things could change. Right, so let's go through phase 1. So phase 1 is all to do with the existing 8 teams, okay? So, phase 1. So in phase 1, unrestricted and restricted free agents can negotiate with any team, including existing expansion teams. But they can only sign with existing teams, not expansion teams. So what I meant by that is a FA can sign with an they can negotiate with an expansion team So they can talk with expansion teams, but the expansion team can't sign them yet. So that's how I have taken it. So if an FA fancies going to expansion team, they can negotiate with that expansion team. It's just that expansion team, if they choose to take them, they can't sign them as of yet. That will come down later on in the line. But yeah, that's what I took away from it. So really, this phase is where the existing teams get to strike first before it then gets complicated and the expansion teams take over. So this first phase is kind of for the existing franchise. So the current 8 teams that compete in the 2025-26 season. That's how I see it right now with this first phase. So if you're an FA, you can sign with an existing team, but you can't sign with the new teams. But that does not stop FAs from negotiating with expansion teams if they feel they'd rather go there than stick with one of the current 8 teams. Okay, so existing teams can protect 3 players in phase 1. So just like last year, we protect 3 players each. This includes signed players or by signing a free agent. So, for example, if we want to protect Taylor Heisey, because she is one of those many FAs, there's loads of FAs coming up in this free agency window. So we use Heisey example. So, for example, if we want to protect Taylor Heisey, which we very likely will, we have to sign her to a new contract before we can protect her. Okay? That's how it works. Okay? So yeah, so if there's an FA who hasn't got who's on expiring contract, then you have to sign to a new contract if you want to count that FA towards your protection list. Okay? And it's like last year, you're only allowed 3. So that's going to be a bit of a bundle of joy. You can see if you watched last year's protection list episode that we did, you saw the pain on us 3 trying to work out who we wanted, particularly from this, given how in the end one of the players that we put in the mix to get protected didn't get protected and was a straight first signing for the Golden Knights. So now, existing teams can lose a maximum of 1 free agent to another existing team. So there's nothing to stop. I think this is where it gets interesting because last year it was only expansion teams that got to sort of have their pick and mix with the FAs. Whereas this time around, it's pretty much everybody's fair game. And FAs can if they think they will do better with a different existing team, they can easily sign that, which is interesting. It gives these players so much more control, which I actually do quite like. So existing teams can lose a maximum of 1 free agent to another existing team, and if a player is if a player that was drafted in 2025 is an RFA, the team can retain her rights by submitting a qualifying offer of no less than 3% over the player's previous salary. And this is mentioned as a means of protection. Okay? Yeah. Okay. So that is basically phase 1. So what I find interesting with this first phase is how players, particularly FAs, have got more flexibility in where they go. So if you're an FA and you feel that you can't really see a future in your current team, you are not restricted to these 4 new expansion teams. You are also have the opportunity to potentially negotiate with an existing team and get a contract there. And it gives these players more flexibility. It gives them more choice compared to last year, where it's basically here's the exclusive sign window. Seattle, Vancouver gets a crack at the whip, takes somebody fancy, and they did. But the existing teams couldn't do anything until after the expansion draft. I feel like last year's expansion draft process. So last year's expansion process as a whole, never mind the draft. Last year's expansion process as a whole, I kind of felt, didn't give the existing teams, which was the inaugural 6, any advantage. They were pretty much locked in and trapped into the rules because they weren't allowed to do any signings until way after the entry draft. Way after that. So, yeah, so I kind of feel like there's more flexibility this time around compared to what we had last year. So phase 1, the way I look at it, is basically for the existing teams. Okay, and I think this will see existing teams do the most heavy lifting. Now, the expansion teams, they can still play a part in this first phase. It's just if they take an FA, whether that's a UFA or an RFA, they can't sign them yet. They can take them as part of the players they're allowed to take, but they wouldn't be able to sign them just yet. That comes up later on in the phase. In the later phases, okay. So it's been a long night, so I will probably be tripping myself and taunting myself at plenty of times throughout this, okay? Just hang in there, guys. Hang in there. Yeah, so I think that's going to be interesting. So, we, of course, will do our protection lists for that first phase as normal. So it'll be like last year. We record an episode. Nobody's allowed to leave the room until it's done, and then I will get a copy of the lists posted onto my Instagram. So we'll still do that as normal. I think we've already started thinking about who we would protect. Montreal's easy because Montreal, I think it will be just basically the same as last year. Montreal's easy. The rest we're trying to figure it out. So we've already started thinking about who we would protect. So yeah. So phase 1 is kind of for the existing teams, but the expansion teams, they can still play a critical part in this first phase. It's just if they take an FA, they can't sign them. That will come up later. So phase 1 basically favours the existing teams. Phase 2, which we're going to come on to next, favours the expansion teams. And this, yeah, you might well go and fill up now because this is just, yep, okay. So, we're going to pause there. So that's phase 1. We're going to pause there, and we'll come back. We'll move on to phase 2. So moving on to phase 2, and this is where the expansion teams get to basically be a pick and mix. I love that, love that, love that. Oh, I love that! I'll definitely have that! Okay? So there you go. Right, so phase 2. So here comes phase 2 now. Right. Okay. So during phase 2, any player not protected or signed in phase 1 can only sign with an expansion team. So this is when it gets interesting. So in phase 1, you pretty much could basically negotiate with anybody and basically take your pick of the field. Phase 2 is just for the expansion teams only. So so for this phase, the current 8 are pretty much in the dark. They will have no control, and they are pretty much left at the mercy of the expansion teams. So in a way, phase 2 is kind of like an expansion draft, but it's not. Okay? That's how I kind of see it, because obviously the expansion draft last year, Knuckle 6 had no control over who got taken by who. So that's how I kind of play it. So in phase 2, that's phase 2. So in phase 2, expansion teams will submit a 20-player exclusive negotiation target list. An ENTL. So this is basically like in an election where parties will have a list of the constituencies and they will rank them in terms of their target, so which they think is the best chance for them to get gains in that city. Oh, how funny! I'm managing constituencies in the week of elections in my country. Okay. So, we'll use my part of it. So, yeah. So, anyway, it's kind of like how if in an election, the Liberal Democrats, for example, so my party, we would have a list of all the constituencies, and we would rank them in terms of our targets, so which ones we feel we should target the most in trying to get the most council seats, because obviously this week we've got council elections for the Lib Dems in England. So that's kind of what it is. So basically what it will be is the expansion teams will have a list of 20 players who they basically want to go after. And chances are, some expansion teams will have the exact same players, but maybe in a different order. Okay? That's basically what it is. So basically each expansion team will draw up a list of 20 players that they want to target to take for their team. That's how it's going to work. Right, now this is now where it gets complicated. So, expansion teams can sign up to 5 players to 2 types of contracts. One of those is known as an EFO, which is Expansion Franchise Offer. Now, for an Expansion Franchise Offer, the salary is no less than 100k or players' 2025-26 salary, whichever is greater. Player decides the length of the contract between 1 to 4 years. Player who signs for multiple years gets 20k upfront payment. Minimum 3% raise for multi-year contract is mandatory. Entire contract is guaranteed. Player decides if she wants to spread the value of the contract evenly. So, for example, 100k, 103, 106, or 100. Sorry. So 100k, 103k, 106, 090k, or 103, 030k each year. Players must sign with the team offering an EFO. So basically, if a player gets offered an EFO, you have to sign. So you get no choice in that matter. If you get offered that contract, you have to sign it. Which is a bit... Which I'm not sure that's really fair, you know, especially if it then doesn't work out being on that team. And you don't have to be then part of a multi-trade, like we saw obviously Vancouver do with Arwa. So I'm not sure that's fair, but... Okay. Yeah, so a player must sign with the team offering an EFO. But if more than one team offers an EFO, the player can choose which team. So basically, for example, if 2 expansion teams offer the exact same player an EFO, then the player gets to choose which one they go to, but they have to sign with one of them. And the final part is only 1 EFO per expansion team. So each expansion team can only make this contract to 1 player. So you would have to look at that target list and think, right, who do you think has got the best chance of signing an EFO, and then go for that. So yeah. If I was a hockey player, I would hate this kind of contract, because you're basically forcing me to sign with a team, regardless how I feel. But, the only upside to that is, if more than one team want you, you can choose. Okay. So, So, we go from giving player choice in phase 1 to limiting that choice in phase 2. Because this is a harsh contract, because basically, if you get offered an EFL, you have to sign it. You don't get a choice. You have to. But so I don't like the looks of that at all. Let's do the second type. The second type of contract available in phase 2 is called an FPO, which is a foundational player offer. Now, for a foundation player offer, this is what it comes to. So the contracts have to be for a minimum of 2 years. Salaries have to be a minimum of 80k for year 1 and 82.5k for year 2. If more years are added, the contract's average annual value can't be below the baseline salary. That's roughly about 81,250 quid. Player doesn't have to accept an FPO. Okay, so if you get this offer, You don't have to take it, whereas the other one you do. So, alright, this sounds more lucrative. Okay. Now, if a team can't sign 5 players during Phase 2, they will be able to select unprotected players with contracts or whose rights are held by existing teams, as long as those players are on their target list. For those players, the player's contract remains valid, rights are held for the next season. If a team can't get to 5 players, they can petition the league to add additional players to their target list. Those players can't be signed to an EFO, FPO, or be selected. Right, okay. So, in this phase, so in Phase 2, the existing teams, so coming back to them, we've not forgotten yet, the existing teams can lose a maximum of 3 players. Okay? Right, got that. So, this phase is very much for the expansion teams. So this is basically like an expansion draft, but it's not. Okay? It also has elements of the exclusive signing we had last year, because in the exclusive signing last year we had it was 5 players that Banco were allowed to take, and it got that done really quickly. If I remember rightly, the exclusive signing opened on the Wednesday, so it was the day after. We got the protection list on the Tuesday. The ESW opened on the Wednesday, and by Friday, both Banco and Seattle locked in all 5 of their selections. Me personally didn't think they would get that done that quick. We thought they would take the entire period, because if we were doing that, we would probably make the most of it. But they got it done really quickly, so we were thinking, oh, should we have a shorter ESW this time around? But yeah, yeah. But this is really where the expansion teams get to basically make their moves and basically strike. Yeah, I'm not sure if I like those contracts. I mean, was it the EPO? Yeah. The EFO. I don't like that contract. The EFO contract. I don't like that, because that's basically forcing a player to sign with a team who they may not want to be on, but but the outside says, oh, if more than one team wants you, you can choose. Then the power then goes back into your hands. It's like, that's basically like X Factor. If the judges can't decide, we'll just take it to deadlock, then the public gets to have the power back in control. It's like, I sometimes wonder, why did the public not get to have to vote in the first place? We all know the good singers get voted off by the judges. God. Anyway, no wonder why it's no longer around anymore. Yeah, so I'm dreading this phase, because those target lists, you can imagine, and we'll probably have an episode on those target lists. We'll look at them all and do our reactions to that, and you're probably gonna have it'll probably be me playing going, oh, because I kind of do wish, I mean, I know it wasn't in the early hours of the morning, but I kind of do wish there was a camera on me put a lady during the entire expansion draft, because every single pick we just basically went, because every pick was a shock, because every pick was a really rock solid player. Yeah. So yeah, this is going to be the phase I think we're going to hate the most. But yeah, so just yeah. But this phase, the second phase, it's very much expansion team focused compared to the first phase. And it's quite alarming what's going to happen here. Yeah, so that's basically going to be Armageddon. The expansion teams will come in, they will take their pick of the crop, and then decimate the existing teams. And you just got to then wonder what they're going to do after that. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to the existing teams after this phase. Given how many players they lost, because each 60 teams lose up to a maximum of 3 players. It doesn't mean they'll all lose 3 players. Some might lose just 2, some might lose only 1 maybe, or some will probably lose all 3. It depends on what crop is available. But yeah, I think this is going to be the nightmare phase, and that's only phase 2. That's only phase 2. That's bad when you note phase 2 as the aggressive phase. There's still 3 more to come in the pipeline. There's still 3 more to come in the pipeline. Okay, so, alright. So, that is phase 2. We'll pause, and then we'll come back and go on to phase 3. Alright, moving on to phase 3. Look at that, we're already halfway through the processes. Yay! Or, how you feeling after that? Second phase. Oh my god. I can just imagine what Earth reaction is going to be to target lists. Just. Yeah. Right, phase 3. Okay. So, I think phase 3 is kind of similar to phase 1. So let's go through it, we'll see what I mean. So phase 3. So in phase 3, UFA and RFAs can sign any team, expansion, and existing. So So this is where now FAs can get full freedom of choice. Because in phase 1, if an FA, whether it be UFA or RFA, if they want to go to expansion team, they can negotiate, but they're not allowed to sign. Here is where expansion teams can sign FAs if they so want to. Now, existing teams can protect signed players or sign free agents up to a maximum of 3 contracts in addition to the 3 in phase 1. So, okay. So to all you are like, oh no, we're going to get 3 picks again. No. Oh. No. False. No. You panicked too soon. You got to make a second. So that means we'll have a second wave of protection. So that means we'll have to do a second batch of lists. Oh god. And who knows where we'll be at when we get to phase 3. Who knows where we'll be at that point, because who's gone and so forth. So we'll have to see. Will we get a chance to do another episode on that? We'll see. God. You can imagine how poor lady going to feel about how to do 1 set of protection lists. Never mind how to do 2. Okay. Yeah, so basically that means the existing teams get to protect up to 6 players. So that's more than last year. So look at it that way. Right. Now, expansion teams can sign up to 3 UFA or RFA. And player who received an FPO in phase 2 has to sign with any team by the end of phase 3. So he can sign another team, but it has to be 90% of the FPO baseline salary. So that's roughly 17,125k. So that's interesting. So you could be in a situation where you have the expansion team offers someone an FPO, but they decide, oh, do you know what? I'd rather not go with you. I'd rather go with that team over here that currently exists. Because I feel more confident with that team where they're going than I am with you. So just when we thought phase 2 sounded really ugly and really aggressive, and there was no control, it's only no control if you get an EFO. If you get an FPO, you've got the power, because you don't have to take that contract in that second phase. You can basically hold out and see if you want to negotiate with the existing teams first, and then you can then decide. So, now the power's back. Okay, now the power is back. Okay, this is good. I'm liking this. The power's now back, guys. The power's now back in their hands. Yeah. So so this phase is kind of similar to phase 1. So the existing teams get to do protection lists. the FAs get to basically negotiate again, except this time, if you do negotiate with an expansion team, you can now get signed by them. In Phase 1, not allowed. In Phase 1, you can only sign with one of the current 8 teams. In Phase 3, you can sign with a expansion team. So, it depends on how well the negotiations went in Phase 1. If it went really well, great, then you're going to be potentially going with that team. But if not, you can then look elsewhere. So yeah, so this is, and that's just quite a short and snappy explanation about Phase 3. Right. Very short and snappy, so. Yeah. So I'm liking this. Yeah, so that means another round of protection lists. I think I'd be interested to then do that second set of protection lists. Especially if, because I was quite surprised how many players that us three got right last year. If you watch the episode when we revealed the actual protection lists and compare them to ours, we were quite shocked by how many we got right. Obviously, there was one or two we got absolutely bloody wrong. Because obviously we did not foresee Boston not protecting Harry Knight. We did not see that coming. Say with Toronto not protecting Sarah Nurse, we did not see those two moves coming. But yeah, so I think it'll be interesting just to see if we do get to do a second batch protection list. It'll be interesting to see how many on our first didn't get protected and actually went. And then we got last, I think, right, okay, well now we got something right here. So we've got left that could potentially be protected. Where do we go from there, kind of thing? So yeah, so I think that'll be interesting to do a second set of protection lists. That would be really interesting. And it'd be interesting to comparison between what we did in Phase 1 compared to what we did in Phase 3. Yeah, so that's going to be exciting. Yeah, so I think this is where you see the most power to the players. Because this process has been designed to give players more power, give them more choice and more freedom compared to what we had in the rules last year. Okay. And I think it'll be interesting to gauge fan reaction here, you know. Because obviously everyone last year hated the setup last year. So it'll be interesting to see, particularly when we get going into the process, it'll be interesting to see what people make of this process. So it'll be interesting to get on it all. No, but I think this is a really good, but I do quite like, Phase 3 for me sounds good. Especially after Phase 2, if we then get that, like, sinking feeling, because the expansion teams have taken some really good players from our teams. In Phase 3, you kind of then get to have that type of, you know, like, silver lining, because you then get to protect players again, you get to then sign players again, and everybody's back in fair game. In Phase 2, it's all about the expansion teams. Then in Phase 3, the existing teams then come back into the fold, and it just then gets exciting. So yeah, so it's kind of like mini free agencies here. You know, that's how I kind of look at it. Phase 1 and 3. It's kind of like mini versions of free agency that obviously will kick in well after the entry draft. Yeah, so I look at this. This is kind of like those little, you know, mini free agencies here. So we'll see how it goes. So that's going to be. But the biggest caveat here is I'm gonna read it again. The biggest caveat I find with this is players who receive an FPO in Phase 2 has to sign with any team by the end of Phase 3. So that's interesting. Yes, you have to then meet the baseline of the FPO who assigns that player, but what's interesting is they don't have to go with the expansion team. So the expansion team could offer a player in Phase 2 an FPO, but they don't take it. They hold out to Phase 3, and then they can basically decide if they want to take that offer or use it to negotiate a different deal, and maybe a better deal with another team. So, and then my advice to players who get an FPO in Phase 2: don't sign it. Don't sign it. Wait till Phase 3. Make these expansion teams work for it. Because in Phase 2, the expansion teams are going to feel like they've got all the power. Especially when they hand out those EFOs. They're going to feel like they've got all the power. So if you're a player in phase 2 that gets offered an FPO, don't take it straight away. Don't take it straight away. Basically be like, oh, well, I'll think about it. Be like that. Make those expansion teams work for it. Make them want to do their best to get you. If you think it's not going to work with that team, then go and look around the market and work out what works. Yeah. So my advice to players with FPOs in phase 2, do not accept them on the spot. Unless you are certain that you want to go with that expansion team. If you think the expansion team offer you that FPO is the right fit for you, then all by me, it's take that and be happy. But for the majority of players who get FPOs, I would basically say to you, hold out until phase 3 and then make your move. Okay? Because in phase 3, the power then goes back into your hands and you've got control over what happens. So hold out till phase 3 would be my best advice. Yeah. And this is going to be interesting as phase 3 goes. When we get existing teams back in, and it's just going to be, it's going to be college. It's going to be college. It's going to be absolutely college. So yeah, so look at that, a nice simple phase. Look at that. Why can't it all be just simple and straightforward? I know, right? I know. Why can't it be like that? There you go, phase 3 there in the box. Nice and easy, simple. Yeah, so that's the halfway point. So that's the first 3 phases. I think that's all I can say for phase 3. So we'll pause and we'll come on to phase 4. Come back. Okay, from the joys to phase 3, we now move on to phase 4. Okay, right, so now let's see how this goes. Okay. Right, it's not much to phase 4 actually. So phase 4. So in phase 4, any player not protected or signed can sign with an expansion team. Right, okay. So expansion teams can't sign players who were on its phase 2 ENTL. Okay. If a team can't get to 10 players, they will be able to select unprotected players with contracts or whose rights are held by existing teams. In this phase, players' contracts remain valid and rights are held for the next season. Existing teams can lose a maximum of 4 players under contract between phases 2 to 4. Okay? So that basically means in total each season's going to lose 4 players like last year. No problem. So yeah, that's basically it. That's basically it. So basically, phase 4, it's basically all expansion teams. As he scratches his head, interesting how the odd number phases are for everybody and the even number phases are for split expansion teams. Coincidence there, maybe? A little bit of a coincidence, maybe? Yeah. So interesting caveat there about with the target list. So basically, after phase 2, they're pretty much null and void. So they're only really for phase 2 because it basically says you can't sign players who are on your target list. So that's interesting. That could then really narrow down the field because if there's players still available, but they were on target list, then they can't be taken. So it's almost like an extra protection spot slotted away, but not really. It's extra protection slot. But it's kind of like a safety net there. If you are on a target list in phase 2, but you don't get taken in phase 2, then basically, well, yeah, that's it. You are pretty much safe. You can't be taken. Yeah. So by this point, it's basically any player that's not protected or signed. And it's only with an expansion team. So as in phase 3, it could be with any team. In phase 4, it's only the expansion teams that you are allowed to sign with. this is actually the final phase that involves expansion. Phase 5, which we'll get to in a moment, is basically what comes in the lead up to the entry draft. Now, at the time of recording this episode on May the 4th, we do not have concrete confirmation of when or where the draft is. The document did give a tentative date, but I'm not giving that on this show. I'm not getting any dates on the show because they're literally, they can easily be changed. Okay, so yeah. So this phase is pretty much the expansion team's last chance before the entry draft to basically nab anybody that they want who hasn't signed yet to a team. But of course, the little trick here is if they're on your target list, you cannot take them. And I think that's interesting. So we go out to phase 2, and we kind of feel like the expansion teams had all the power. In this phase, their power's kind of gone because at this point, you're only able to take players who haven't signed contracts, but they were not on your list. So really, when we're looking at those target lists, those expansion teams need to be very, very careful with who they put on it. Because if they are still available come phase 4, you won't be able to take them. You won't be able to do that. So, yeah, all that mighty power in phase 2 kind of, fizzles away when we get to phase 4, which I think is really interesting. It's interesting, so so that's that. That's pretty much what it's doing. So basically it's just players who aren't signed, whether they're a UFA or an RFA, they can only sign an expansion team. So this phase just basically shots the existing teams out of the picture. So again, bit like an expansion draft, no control over who goes where, but it's not really expansion draft. Okay, so yeah, but so this is kind of interesting with phase 4 because really it's when the expansion teams get to play again, but they've not really got that much power when we get to phase 4, which is interesting. It's really, really interesting. So it'll be interesting to see when the target lists come out, how many do actually get picked, how many do you actually get on the target list. So that'll be interesting. So yeah. And by that point, the expansion part of the 5-phase plan will be pretty much done. So phase 5 is really about what happens in the run-up to the entry draft. So really it's just a 4-phase expansion process, but there's a 5th phase added in the run-up to the draft, which we'll come on to next. Is there any more words about phase 4? Literally that's all it is to it in phase 4. Is literally any player not signed or protect can basically just go to any expansion team provided they are not on an expansion team's target list. Yeah. So basically phase 4 is kind of like the last hurrah for expansion teams to basically make their moves before we get to the entry draft in probably what will probably be the end of June, because these are going to happen phases, and each phase will take like at least 2 to 3 days. So we're probably looking at maybe the end of June is when we'll have the entry draft. It's a bit like last year, because last year's entry draft was kind of like towards the end of June last year. That's because at the start of June you had the expansion draft. So I think we're looking at end of June is when we'll have the entry draft, and that will be yeah. So I think that's all I can do for phase 4. Yeah, I think because there isn't that much to phase 4. It's pretty much like the last hurrah, expansion teams get one last bite at the cherry to make their moves, get players who they want to get, provided not on target lists. Yeah, but the target list, that really could bite them in the rear, because in phase 2 it gives them all the power, but it could then bite them in the rear come phase 4 if there's something they want but they can't because it's on a target list. So that's gonna be interesting. Okay, yeah, that's very awkward. I think that is awkward phase 4. So we'll take a pause and then we'll come back and get on to phase 5, the final phase. And the final phase, phase 5. Now I kind of think phase 5's got nothing to do with expansion, but it's in the process anyway, so let's just go through it. Let's have a read anyway. So phase 5. So in phase 5, UFA and RFA can sign with their existing teams or wait to sign with any team after the entry draft in the open signing period. So players with their rights held by a team must receive a qualifying offer or they can sign with any team in the opening signing period. And that is pretty much the gist of it. So basically, phase 5 is basically the last thing in the lead up to the entry draft. And it's basically where it's pretty simple. A UFA or an RFA can only sign a contract with their existing team, or they hold out until we get to free agency and then ba-bom, the floodgates open. As we saw last year, particularly with Ottawa, because once it got to free agency, oh my. The stadium went out the stall, didn't it? Didn't it, Charge Avenue? Didn't it? You know? Just quick, straight out the gates, just left the stalls with a blazing glory. Yeah. So by that point, it's only your existing team or you hold out. And a thing, when I look at it, if a player chooses to hold out, I think it's going to be unlikely they're going to stick with their existing team. So, I mean, this phase will tell us who is definitely committed to their current team and who is not, and potentially is going to maybe, look elsewhere, which is going to be exciting and also nerve-wracking at the same time. Because we've already seen X amount of players lost in the expansion process in the first 4 phases, and now potentially in phase 5 we could be looking at losing maybe more people, but that's because of the result of free agency, because they intend to look elsewhere rather than stick with their current team. Yeah, I don't get why this is a phase, because it's got nothing to do with expansion teams. By the time we go to phase 4, that's it. The expansion teams are done. Okay, they can't do any more until the entry draft. Phase 5 is basically like an opportunity for the existing teams to potentially sign any FAs who they really want to get signed and keep before the horror that is free agency, the hell that is free agency, then opens up in July, and it's all guns blazing, all hell breaks loose. Yeah, so, did you need to put this phase in the plan? No, I think it's good that it's only existing teams you can sign with. I think that's good, because by that point, who knows what state the existing teams will be in when we get to the end of phase 4. So, but you kind of need to give the existing teams, before we get to the entry draft, you kind of need to give the existing teams the opportunity to sign any FAs that they really, really, really desperately want to keep. Let them have the opportunity first. If they can't sign them, then fine, we just let the free agency take its time and do its thing. But I think it's good that we give the current existing teams an opportunity to sign potential FAs first before you basically let them go off onto the market. Okay, it's kind of like first refusal. So you get opportunity first, and then after that, it's basically, well, it's anyone's game. And I think that phase will be interesting amongst the existing teams because it could give us a picture of how each existing team is going to look going into 2026-27. So that's going to be interesting. And it does make you wonder, which players could maybe not be still sticking around when we get to free agency. Who knows? We'll see. There is, of course, every chance that a player that doesn't sign that phase could still sign with their current team. It's just they probably will, shop around first before committing. Okay, so this is the advice I'm going to give to you guys. If a particular FA doesn't sign with their current team in phase 5, don't automatically assume that's it. They're going to sign elsewhere. It could be what they're doing is they're waiting until after the entry draft. They're waiting until free agency kicks in, look around first, and then decide what to do. Because in this phase, it's only with your existing team. You can't shop elsewhere. You can't negotiate with other teams. It has to be with your current team first, and then we get to free agency. That's where you can start thinking if you want to then look elsewhere. Okay? So, yeah. So I think it's really good we have that in the process. It's good we have that first. So you give the current teams a chance to sign FAs that they really want to get back on their team and just in straight away, and not to worry about them potentially going elsewhere in the summer. And then you let everybody else then get a look in. So yeah. So that's phase 5. I don't get why we need to have that included in the expansion process, because it's got nothing to do with the expansion teams, because they will have to wait until after the entry time. Although, if you're a general manager of the expansion team, you would probably want to keep a close eye on what's going on in this phase, because there could be some players in there that you could potentially then target if they don't sign with their current team. So, while technically this phase, it doesn't really concern the expansion teams, because they can't be involved, because an FA in this phase can only sign with their current team. The expansion teams can still keep a close eye on what's going on, just like how we're going to keep a close eye on all the other phases. The expansion teams, they can keep an eye on what's going on and see, right, who potentially could be put on the market come July. I think my understanding is when we get to the entry draft, the expansion teams will have 10 players. Now, if we stick to the 6-round format of the draft, like we had last year, which I think is the right way to go, that means by the end of the entry draft and going to free agency, the expansion teams will have 16 players each. They would then need to sign another 7 during free agency. Unless you want to give the expansion teams extra picks in the draft. I think it'd be quite hard if the expansion teams to try and get to 23 if they only get 16 going into entry draft. I mean, going to last year's entry draft, Vancouver and Ottawa. Sorry, no. Oh god, sorry. Oh my god, not Ottawa. Oh god. Sorry, it's been a long show. Sorry, I'll start again. When we were at Ottawa last year, by the time we got to Ottawa last year, there we go. By the time we got to Ottawa last year with the entry draft, both Vancouver and Seattle had 12 players. 5 from the exclusive sign window, and 7 in the expansion draft. Okay? 12 players. Easy. In free agency, all I had to do was get another 5 players. Done. So, I think free agency is going to be really, really tricky for the expansion teams. If by the end of the entry draft they have 16 players, and they've got to have another 7 just to get to the required 23. And then you need reserves as well. So, I could see the league offering additional draft picks to the expansion teams to basically fill up their rosters. And why not? It's a really stacked draft class this year. This year's draft class coming in 2026 is a really, really stacked class. So, why not? Why not? Okay. Because I think it would be harder. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it would be a lot more harder for expansion teams to get an extra 7 players in free agency compared to an additional 5 that Vancouver and Seattle had to do last year. Because by the end of last year's entry draft, Vancouver and Seattle were at 18 players, and they just need to get an extra 5 to get to their full roster. That was easier for them. I think it's going to be a little harder for some expansion teams to do that, so I would not be surprised if they want to throw in, like, say, additional picks to expansion teams just to maybe get them up to close to that 23 roster as possible. So maybe I'd say give the expansion teams an extra 2 picks each. That would then turn to 18 to where Vancouver and Seattle were this time last year, at the end of the draft last year. And then in free agency, you can then go and do your thing. That's what I would do. I would say would give the expansion teams an extra 2 picks in the entry draft, and then take it from there. That's what I would do. But of course, we'll see how it goes. Because we don't know what state we'll be in by the time we get to the entry draft. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah. So phase 5, it's not really for expansion teams, but they will need to keep a close eye on it because there could be players that you might be thinking, ooh, we might fancy them. Well, they could be up for grabs. So this fire phase is just for the existing teams only. And it's their opportunity to basically ink the FAs that they really, really desperately want to keep, and then we'll see what happens. But my advice to you guys would be, do not panic if an FA doesn't sign with your team, who's on your team this season. It just means that they want to basically shop around first before they commit to a contract. Okay? So that's the advice I'd give to you guys going into it. It's definitely going to get drawn to put on his head, thinking, oh my god, no, she's not saying all that. No, don't, not yet, don't stop. Do not sound DEFCON 1 just yet, okay? Right, so that's the advice I'll give you guys, okay? So just hold out. Okay? Don't panic if it's potential inside straight away. It just might mean you gotta wait a little bit longer before they commit pen to paper. Okay? Okay. Right. Whew. Okay. Let's take a quick pause, then we'll come back and we'll sign off. Whew. And there we go. That's it. All 5 phases done. There is going to be an episode where you're going to hear my thoughts to this process along with Pluto Lady. Today was basically just explaining it. This episode today was basically just about going through the phases, explaining how it works. And then on the next episode, you'll hear our thoughts about the process. Okay? You're going to get our thoughts on how we feel about this process. Okay? So that's coming up next time. So hopefully you guys now have a better understanding. I've tried my best. Okay? When I saw that last night, and it came out quite early in the evening, there's still quite a way to go for the Wild at Denver. When I first saw that in the early evening, immediately I was like, oh my god, my head hurts. And then when I had a second read a bit later on, so just literally an hour before the Wild and game was going to start, I had quick read again, and it kind of made more sense on the second read than it did on the first read. So I feel a lot more better about it now. And I did come to bed last night. I did feel I was in a good place to be able to explain to the viewers, to my best ability, how it works. So I hope I've done that for you guys today. So there you go. Honestly, I did not mention the date. If you go look at that article on the Hockey News, which basically breaks it all down, they put dates in there. I did not read out those dates because things can change. It's all in a state of flux. Everything can change. It's a moving train. So, and one other thing before we go, we of course, the Pebble Trio, we're going to be with you, when this process does start, we're going to be with you every step of the way. We will have episodes covering the results of each phase. We will have 2 protection lists. They're going to kill me. Pluto Lady are going to kill me. because it's bad enough we've got to do one episode for protection lists. Now we've got to do two. They are gonna absolutely kill me. They really are. They're gonna kill me. Okay, they are gonna kill me. So yeah, we'll have that. We will also have an episode where we go through the when we get to phase 2, we'll go through each expansion team's target list. That's going to be a sweary episode, particularly on Pluto's end. But yeah. So we will cover this every step of the way with you guys when it gets started. So when the expansion present starts, we'll be here with you every step of the way to hold your hand. Okay? So, and now I'm not quoting the song by Jessica from that airline I had. I'm not doing that. No. We'll be there with you guys every step of the way. Okay, so we're gonna do this together. We're gonna do it together. We're gonna get through this bit by bit. We're gonna do it together. Okay, we've always done. Okay, so hang in there. It's gonna be messy few weeks when this kicks in. So basically, not long after World Cup finals is when it will start kicking in. So yeah, it's gonna be messy, but we're gonna be here with you guys every step of the way. Okay. Right. So that's the bit for today. It's been complex. It's been long. It's been frustrating. It's been stressful. We made it. That is how the process is going to work. So thank you to them as always. Until next time, take care, guys, and don't forget to pull the freeze.